So it seems there's been an absolutely enormous new Warhammer 40k model leak. We've got a brand new and upscaled Catan Shard of the Nightbringer for the Necrons, new Sisters of Battle Celestians, and brand new Raptors for the Chaos Space Marines. Let's talk about the new models and the leak. What do we know about the miniatures, builds, and gear? Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking about the rather big model leak. Not just one new thing for Warhammer 40k, but three. 2 new kill teams, and 1 new big centerpiece model for the Necrons. For a couple of these, we knew that they were coming. We've seen some leaks from a kill team dossier manual for the Chaos Space Marine Raptors and some Celestian Infiltrators of the Adepta Sororitas. Then now it looks like whoever had the kill team manual earlier appears to have uploaded the rest of the images for it. It turns out it's not just them. But on top of that, in a kill team box, it looks like there's going to be a new Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, so a dramatic new centerpiece for the Necrons. It looks like the next setting of their kill team is going to be set on a tomb world. That's why you've got the kill team tomb world coming out with the Necron Geomancer versus the Deathwatch kill team. I guess this is probably going to be the next one in that series. And it seems that both Sisters and Chaos are joining the fray, battling against each other and against the Awakening Necrons. From what this implies though, it means that weirdly enough, the Catan Shard of the Nightbringer actually might see a release as a kill team kit in one of those limited edition box sets before it goes on sale normally, which does feel super weird given it's a massive great big centerpiece model that can take on entire chunks of an army in Warhammer 40k, but appears to be filling the role of a big boss monster in kill team. The leaks for these ones are certainly legitimate, no real doubt in them here. They come from a Spanish kill team dossier, the ones that usually get packed with the new boxes when they come out, and it means that between the pictures and the descriptions we've got a pretty good idea as to what's going to be in the kit, though not necessarily every single detail. A bunch of the names might have kind of rough translations. You can tell what some things are going to represent, but a few things might have slightly different names in English depending on how they decide to interpret them. In any case, let's jump in with the brand new Nightbringer model. Both him and the Deceiver did seem pretty heavily odds on to be getting a revamped model at some stage down the line. We saw the spectacular new version of the Void Dragon coming out alongside the Indomitus set back in 9th edition, and since then it seemed inevitable that we'd be getting something about the same sort of scale for the other Catan Shards. It looks like that point could actually be pretty soon, given that we've got pictures of him now. We've got a couple of pictures of the new Nightbringer, one of him in a sort of arty battlefield shot, fighting against a Chaos Lord and new Raptors with some Sisters and other Necrons in the background, and also one of a sort of kill team data profile for him that looks like he is a sort of boss guy, perhaps aimed to be taken down by a cooperative style mission. I feel like of all the miniatures to turn up in kill team, it's just kind of surprising that a Shard of a Living God turns up there. It'd certainly be more than just about any kill team could manage if they were playing against each other in Warhammer 40k, though obviously with different rules they can balance him to make sure that he's actually not going to be an automatic win model in kill team, I suppose. In any case, focusing on the model himself, from what we can see of him, he does look rather spectacular in my opinion. Looks like a fitting resculpt. He's borne aloft on crackling green energy in a similar sort of way to the Void Dragon, and it seems there's a whole bunch of scarab swarms swirling around him. Looks like there's some to the left of him a bit higher up, as you can see on the picture on the left, and it also looks like there's another batch of them closer to the ground near those electric tendrils. He's clad in some tattered Grim Reaper style robes, the ends of which are sort of fusing and turning into Necron pixels with the lightning below them. He's got mysterious shadowy drapes in a similar sort of style to the old one. The face is kind of similar as well, with a death mask screaming at the enemy, and then the scythe is all held out behind him, all ready for a mighty blow, maybe beheading an enemy leader or battle tank. Feels like there's a bit more of a sense of motion of this one, and I feel like it looks like a pretty cool update at first impressions. I'd imagine that the scale of him is going to be really quite a lot bigger than the previous. The Void Dragon absolutely towers over the 2 resin Catan models at the moment, and they're mounted on very small bases. It does seem that they basically tries to stick about as close as possible to the original design, but make it bigger and scarier, and also throw in the design things they would seem to want to communicate for the Catan, Necron lightning effect and the pixel things being the main two. The only thing I'm maybe a little bit less sure about are whether or not those scarabs are going to look great in person. I guess they'd probably look nice enough. I suppose you could probably convert to assemble without them if you wanted to. If he's priced the same as the Void Dragon, that'll likely be around about $127 US, £78 or 102 euros. And it means that if he really is coming out in a kill team box set first, then that one's probably going to be far more expensive than the norm. I'd be kind of surprised if he gets any different rules for Warhammer 40k. It's already a powerhouse model and one of the single most scary big damage and defensive threats in the game, even if he moves slowly. Or is a possibility they could decide to do an updated datasheet for him, even if it had kind of minimal changes like Vulcan Heston. In any case though, an interesting surprise. Let me know what you think of him down in the comments below. How much do you like the look of the new model, and how will you rate it compared with the Void Dragon? Before we move on, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in Tabletop Stronghold, who wanted to share their magnetic carry cases with you guys, one option to get your miniatures from A to B in safety. These guys' style of cases are magnetic storage cases, so the idea is that you put magnets on the bases of your miniatures and then they go on steel sheets within the case. The magnets holding the miniatures in place, so you can cram loads of miniatures all in one really quite tiny space without the need for foam and things, and they don't rattle around or bump on each other or damage the paintwork. Tabletop Stronghold specific design are these mag cases. The idea is that the case is made of really quite sturdy and durable MDF, very hard to break or damage. And then in the case there's a whole bunch of different levels. Into each of those you can slot these steel trays, so you can raise and lower them depending on the height of the miniatures that you're transporting. On the front there's a nice acrylic sheet, keeping the box closed of course, and keeping the miniatures on display while in storage and in transit, which is fun. In general, I've heard pretty good things about these from people who picked them up. Plenty of good reviews on Reddit and feedback down in the YouTube comments. Maybe a little bit heavier than some with the MDF and steel, but generally good for keeping miniatures safe. They also have some other offerings such as some MDF terrain, which is a little cheaper if you pick up a mag case. Might be of interest to some who are in the market for that. But otherwise check them out, links down in the video description if you'd like to take a look at them. There's a code AT25 for 25% off any purchase, and I'll talk through their range a little at the end of the video as well. Surprise Nightbringer aside, let's move on to the actual kill teams in the kill team set, and as mentioned we had the leaked kill team dossier earlier. This one shows some Celestian Infiltrators and a Raptors kill team. Previously we only had the artwork to go on, but now we have more. For the hints at the Celestians, we had this picture of the sister with a shield to go by. Currently in 40k we already have the Celestian Sacrosants, the Mason Shield or the Halberd and Shield Sisters Elites, and maybe the biggest question was what they were going to do differently. Was the sister who had seen just one miniature within the entire kit and they were going to do a mainly ranged loadout or something else? What we've got for the Celestian Infiltrators, if that turns out to be their exact name, does still seem to be a close combat sister loadout. These ladies fighting with null rods and condemner bolt pistols, and kind of unusually seems to be a 9 sister kill team kit. Just seems like a bit of an odd choice. I feel like if you had room for 9 models, you probably had room to squeeze one more in there. Though I guess they have done a few more unusual numbers for kill team kits recently. We had a few ones with middling numbers, like the Geomancer led one coming out for the Necrons soon. As to expect from a kill team, it looks like it's a fairly flexible one. They've got null maces and null rods, plus condemner bolt pistols as mentioned for the standard loadout, though as ever they do seem to have plenty of kill team specialists, all very important for kill team games of course and having quite different rules. In 40k some bits of kits might get some representation, and some of which might be more rolled into generic profiles for the unit. Here are the standard sisters for the kit, slightly more ornate armour with some loincloths and flowing robes at the back, kind of similar enough to the Celestian Sacrosants there. It looks like the Spanish basically has them listed as null maces with their weapons on the left. Having null weapons implies they're going to be stronger against psychers than against other things, and then they have a condemner bolt pistol so it can fire a stake or a bolt shot. And again I suppose they might have devastating wounds and some anti-psycho goodness. I guess the vast majority of the squad will be able to be built as the generic loadout if you wanted lots of the standard melee sisters. It seems that within the squad options you can take 2 sisters with the hand flamers. So I guess that's an option to be able to get a bit more volume fire into the unit, hitting at strength 4 no doubt with the sisters rules. Then to go through the special builds and unusual options, we've got a Sister Superior. Again it looks like she's got a null mace and an Inferno pistol this time. Looks like she's got a slightly more ornate, fancy crown type thing as a headdress there. Then it looks like there's the option for the sisters to take a Simulacrum Imperialis. So I guess potentially the option to farm some miracle dice when in range or an objective if it's the same as others. There's one armed with a fleur-de-lis style staff. It looks like they recorded that as a Staff of Declamation. Looks like that could be quite a good one to kit bash into a character model if you wanted to. There's a sister armed with a Blessed Blade, so that adds some serious melee punch to the unit if it's the similar sort of stat line to the Caroness's one. There's one with something called a Rod of Admonition. Again, definitely a sister that has some minor character vibes there. There's the one from the artwork with the Relic Candelabra at the back. Looks like she's got a shield in maybe a similar sort of style to the Celestian Sacrosants, and again is listed as a Blessed Blade I believe, so nice and punchy melee. And then if you put them all together, this is what you get. I've doubled up 2 of the ones with the regular null mace loadouts, so 9 veteran sisters, presumably some good melee punch from the 2 with the Blessed Blades, and then a whole bunch of anti-psychic goodness between the maces and the condemners beyond that. If they are going to be a pistol and melee weapon squad, then it seems that we're not getting the return of ranged Sacrosants, which is what I kind of suspected when we heard about this. I suppose it's certainly not impossible there could be an entirely separate loadout that they've in no way showcased in the kill team kit, maybe one that's aimed for 40k. There maybe seems a bit of a reach until we actually get any sort of confirmation about that. I'd guess that if they have alternative builds, then you might have been able to field them in the kill team set, though I guess maybe there's still a slim chance. If they are going to be Celestian Infiltrators, maybe they will have the infiltrate keyword. They don't really strike me as overly stealthy for systems of battle though, more sort of standard mainline veterans in a similar sort of way to the Sacrosants. I'd guess they'd have some fairly good close range punch, maybe more against infantry and lighter things than being all that good against monsters and vehicles, just not really many things that are likely to be high strength or high damage, unless maybe you're fighting some sort of great big psychic beastie. I feel like having an anti-psycho focus probably isn't going to be great news for them if they get lots of rules that way for Warhammer 40k. Whenever that tends to happen, it usually means they tend to be quite good against their specific targets, but kind of weaker against other things, having less focus on that. In any case, I feel like the models look nice enough. I'll be interested to hear what you think down in the comments below. How would you rate these relative to the regular Battle Sisters and the Celestian Sacrosants, and are they models that you would have hoped for or not? Finally, last but not least, we have the Chaos Raptors. These guys seem like a pretty reasonable choice for a kill team update. I feel like their current 40k kits was just a little bit lesser loved, and they have shown that they're not afraid of doing some jump pack kill teams recently with the Vespid. The artwork style implies that they weren't changing in enormous ways compared with the previous ones. A lot of them have the sort of warp talon fins on the side of the jump packs, but not a big reversion to the previous era version of the Raptors with a very different style on their jump packs. The kits are painted up as Night Lords, and we did have the popular Night Lord kill team from the previous year, though it doesn't look like there's any Night Lord specific parts on these guys. As suspected, they do just seem to be generic Raptors, which I think is really the best decision, given that they're a unit choice that a whole bunch of Chaos Legions want to be able to field. These guys look like they're going to be a very similar kind of offering to the recently unveiled Deathwatch kill team. It seems there's basically going to be a set of 5 models. Each one of those you're going to be able to build at least 2 different ways, maybe more if Games Workshop's feeling generous, but you can tell that lots of them share a sort of base and legs. So you can see a similar leg jumping off the tactical rock in a different way, but just 2 different ways to assemble that model. If they mirror the Deathwatch kill team, I guess that might mean they could be sold as a box of 10 and each have dual builds within that box. First up, it looks like for their actual kill team rules, the squad is led by a Chaos Lord, and there is one of those inside the box. The recent Jump Pack Chaos Lord is a fun model. I'd guess that he'd just be in the big kill team box set for the Raptors as opposed to being in the smaller set when it comes out. If he is vital for fielding the kill team though, then maybe not. Going through the Raptors themselves though, there's one with a melter gun. And from the weapon options, it still looks like there's the option to assemble that with either a flamer or a plasma gun. Depending on whether or not they can go on different models though, it might just be the one special weapon per 5. That definitely seems possible. Otherwise, we've got some standard chainsword Raptors, 2 with chainsword and bolt pistol, and as you can see, a few of their jump packs have the warp talon style fins on the side of them. I feel like the models themselves are looking nice enough, not really enormously different in styling and theme compared with the previous Raptors that we had, though probably a little bit upscaled and their details sharpened up for more current 40k plastics. It seems there's one with a heavy chain axe, which is probably good news for the squad being more threatening. If you are able to take one of those in a 5-man squad, then you could have that with it, presumably a big punchy melee profile, and also having a sergeant with a power fist, and between those 2 together you might have a good chance of making the squad far more dangerous. The champion of the unit is posed with a power sword and plasma pistol here. It looks like he's the alternative build from the heavy chain axe one, so I guess that might mean that there's a chance that you have to choose one of those or the other for a 5-man set, or the heavy chain axe might be locked to taking a 10-man squad. It is confirmed you can equip him with a bolt pistol and a power fist as 2 alternative options compared with what's modelled here. Then there's an all rather warped and twisted one with mutated claws. Looks like he's a particularly freakish and disturbing one with every limb being turned into a twisted mutated version of itself. And then there's one that's armed with a power spear. Again, could be pretty fun to add some threats to the unit if that gets a power weapon style profile rather than a chainsword style one. Just for the dual build versions, here's just an example of that. It's the same legs and the same jumping pose with the raptor coming down from the sky. One of them with a bolt pistol outstretched and holding a chainsword, the other one about to spear something with that power lance. I guess there could be more options than this, but it looks like it's going to be the same sort of either or as the Deathwatch kill team. Perhaps the biggest and maybe slightly most worrying question for the Raptors is whether or not there's going to be warp talons in the box. In the list of operatives that you can field at least 1 warp talon, and I guess if they're essentially a 5-model kit like the Deathwatch, that'll mean that you could assemble 2 of them in a 10-man squad. So far though, rather disturbingly, there's not really been any evidence that there's going to be more than that. Obviously we can hope they've given you an entire frame worth of lightning claws to be able to assemble them in different ways, though the reveals on the box certainly haven't given us any great reason to assume that they're going to be sticking around. It did seem like a danger if they wanted to use the sprue space for other alternative bits for the Raptors, then the warp talon bits might be left high and dry. If they don't decide to provide the entire squad enough lightning claws to fill them as that unit, then there's at least some chance they might be retired as a unit option for Warhammer 40k and sent into Legends. Obviously not necessarily a problem for people who use those regularly and will use the current models there, though still not exactly great news as to be a downgrade in model support and rules, and they gradually get more obscure. Hopefully they do give you enough to make a squad, though I guess we'll wait and see. In any case, for the Raptors in general, here's a picture of 8 of them. It looks like we've not seen every single dual build out of the unit. Presumably there might be more options to fill more of them as just more standard Raptors. We've only seen 2 with the bolt pistol and chainsaw loadout. I'd guess that most of them will be able to take that, so dual builds might be of that one. Overall, at first impressions, the models are looking sharp and look pretty fun. I guess rules-wise, there's a potential that a squad of Raptors could be hitting a fair bit harder, depending on exactly how restricted the war gear is to taking big units. At least potentially though, you could have a whole bunch of interesting melee profiles, a power fist, heavy chain axe, maybe warp talon lightning claws, a power weapon from that lance type thing, and whatever those mutated weapons do. If all of that happens, then at least there could be some chance that Raptors could be a bit more of a threatening unit, and a bit more dangerous as opposed to being the sort of terror troops and skirmishers they tend to fall into the role for at the moment. Let me know what you make of the new Raptor set though. Would you be tempted to pick one up if you're a Chaos Space Marine player? And what are your thoughts on the warp talon question? In any case, some pretty big reveals for Warhammer 40k. I guess there's at least a reasonable chance that Games Workshop might follow this up with a few previews depending on how close they are to releasing these. Often when things get leaked and shared around the internet, they might give us a few more bits. Certainly interesting for Catan Shards, Sisters and Chaos all in one big box set. Let me know your thoughts on the offering down in the comments below. Finally, I'll just cycle back to today's video sponsor in Tabletop Stronghold and just go through their range of model carry cases if you were interested in picking one up. As mentioned, their mag cases have these steel trays inside them. Here are how many models you can fit on them when they're maximally loaded, around about 90 small infantry models or 6 knight armigers. Then those trays basically go in different levels depending on the height of the box set that you've got. The smallest one is called the Mag Case Mini, around about $75 or £72 with the AT25 code for the 25% off. That price does include shipping, though there might be VAT or sales tax on top of that. Even the small one's got plenty of room though. There's a big Spartan in the ground floor of this one and a whole load of Terminators in the top. The regular mag case is a bit bigger than that. You can see it's quite tall by the Chaos Knight on the ground floor there. This one's around about $120 or £114. The cases come with a whole supply of magnets to mount to the bases of the miniatures, and I'll leave the rough dimensions of the cases here on the screen. They've also got a really big one, which is the XL one, essentially 2 of the previous attached together. There's some options for having more or fewer of the magnetic trays, and that can affect the price a bit if you wanted to save a touch. And as mentioned, they also do some MDF terrain as well, a fairly standard and functional terrain set, and you can buy that a bit cheaper if you happen to pick up a mag case. In any case, a big thank you to them for sponsoring this one though. Feel free to check them out, links down in the video description if you'd like to, and they do have that code for 25% off. I'll leave that there for now though. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. I'll certainly look forward to talking about more of these kits, or any more news that we get of them. If you'd like to support the channel, then Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well. You can find that linked in the video description below. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and then automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link's down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.